moment is here, you can stop your search. It's Comics by Perch.
Hey everybody, this is Perch, and there's 1 week left from when you're listening to this to go ahead and back Gemini Jump. It's going to close on Friday, November 5th. And this is a comic made by Larry King. He's done indie comics for a while. He's got a pretty cool little style, very unique. And we did a comic, tried to make it as cheap as humanly possible. $10, you get the comic, and that includes the shipping. And we're going to include some free stuff in there. But you can also get the digital copy and all the rest. So hope you enjoy the comic.
Hey everybody, this is Perch. There's an article out with Tom Taylor where they ask Taylor kind of the question, why did DC Comics spoil Jon Kent's coming out, which is intended to be kind of a big, surprise moment. Maybe surprise is the wrong word, but a big moment in Superman, Son of Kal-El, number 6. They spoiled it basically a month and a half kind of in advance. And, why would they do this? Why does comics continually do this? Because we saw this for the Jace Fox Batman. We've seen it tons of times from Marvel, where they'll spoil the end of an event. They'll spoil Captain America's death. They'll do all these things where the power of the story is to let it play out and have that big punch, have that big moment where the character tragically dies or anything else. And it hurts the impact of that story when USA Today runs a bunch of headlines, a month and a half before the comic comes out. And there definitely is proof that it hurts sales. There's people that come in, if the event is big enough. We saw this absolutely with the death of Captain America. I think we're going to see it again with the Jon Kent being bisexual business. You will see the sales go up. And if it had just kind of come out without the spoilers, like, for example, when Elektra took over the role of Daredevil, then I think the sales would have been lower, but the aftermarket would have been higher. And the reality is a couple things. So I had a couple of people send me questions saying, why would the company do this? Why would DC do this? Well, the simplest and easiest answer is DC gets paid on sales to the comic shop, not sales to the aftermarket. So if the comic goes up in value, it doesn't really matter to DC. They're going to get the same money either way. And this is one of the big conflicts, by the way. If you've noticed, you've seen probably some people talking about how back issues are selling in comic shops more than new issues. And you may have noticed there's kind of a aggressive attitude that comes out from a lot of comic creators about that, and more so from a lot of the editors. I saw a thread where some people were talking about back issues selling really, really well in the store, and I saw some comic editors come in there, and they were all but accusing the people saying this of being Nazis. And I saw people like, why would you be going so aggressive at these people for talking about back issue sales? Well, again, the short answer there is the comic publishers don't make money off back issues. They make money off the original sale. That's it. So, many comic creators, particularly ones that grew up with comic shops, they still value the back issues. They still value the long box and that entire game. But many of the people who've come on more recently, hearing, back issue sales are going up, they get no percentage cut in that. No additional check goes to any of this. There's maybe a long-term factor, which is if the comic does well over time, that they'll get another contract, or maybe the run will be extended. So the creator who thinks long-term is happy about this. But a lot of people are not. It's money that's not theirs, and so they just view it as an irritant. But they asked Taylor, why are you spoiling? Why did this happen? Why did you spoil it? Now, first off, to be fair, the decision to spoil it had nothing to do with Taylor. And Taylor actually does, in the interview, almost take credit for, credit's too strong a word. Somebody's walking way too close to my car there. Set off the little alarm. Taylor takes more credit than I think is reasonable for this thing. He was not involved in this decision. He's talking about, we made a joint decision. Taylor did not make any decision here. This was DC. But what's funny is the article, and I'm looking at the Newsarama article, is the reasons why DC spoiled it are not what you think. So why do you think? I'm asking you right now. We're going to spoil it in this video, but if you're brave here, go ahead and write down, why do you think DC spoiled it? Why do you think DC went ahead and put this out there? What's your reason? I'm guessing you know the reason. The article is kind of funny in that it plays almost coy with it of why is it? So here's the reason. Quote Tom Taylor, the story was going to break anyway, and rumors, some very misinformed, were getting out there. Taylor tweeted after the news broke. Too many people see comics before they hit the shelves. Would have loved to let this play out in the comic, but this was the next best option. All right, that's what you guessed, right? I mean, that's what everybody. That's exactly why they did it. Why they do it? Because it was in a bunch of YouTube videos. Ben Skyver was talking about it. Rich Johnston was talking about it. Rich was talking about it and claiming he talked about it first, and then there was a battle going on there between the two of them. And then, I don't know if it was going between the two of them. It was certainly on Rich's side. But people were talking about this. I think that's why everybody assumed they announced this, is because the rumors are going on and they decided to own the story. My question is it worth it? Was that a good idea? Let's play it out for a second. Let's assume for the moment that DC had said nothing and they had gone ahead and basically let Rich and Ethan and others make these claims and put out videos and say Superman's going to be gay, but they didn't confirm it. They ignored it. They basically, said we're not getting involved in this. We're just going to let the story play out as it's told. What would have been the consequence of this? Again, put your business hat on for a moment. I think this, from a sales perspective, I think there would have been people who would have started to pay attention to the title based off of Bleeding Cool, based off of YouTube, based on these comments. They would start paying attention to the title, and in many cases would have started buying it. I think sales would have trickled up. I don't think you would have had the big speculator boom like that you're going to get now, with people basically calling up to the comic store and going, I want the gay issue, which is what people are doing. I was in visiting a friend at a comic shop. Phone rings, guy picks it up, and literally the guy is like, make sure you save the gay issue for me. I'm like, I find that's very funny. It's funny to me because DC is putting this out there like this is a big step forward for representation and for inclusiveness, and the customer base is going, give me the gay issue. I don't know why I think that's so funny, but it's with good intentions, I guess. That's what you got. Anyway, what if I believe the sales and the strength of the title would have actually been healthier overall. I think that the noise and the churn of everything would have played out as more organic if they would have just kept their mouth shut and rolled it out. However, this would have happened. If they did just keep their mouth shut and roll it out, then when the comic actually appeared in December, Rich, Ethan, and others would have been able to go on the air or go into their articles and said, see, we were right. We were right. Which, in fairness, they can kind of do anyway. But because DC came out with a press release and basically said, yep, this is what they're doing, they can basically say we own the story, and, some people were spoiling it. Then this goes to the colorist on the comic who quit, which everybody believes is the source. You could say, well, that colorist did something wrong. They spoiled it. They're basically able to frame it in such a way that, some bad people spoiled the story. Old Rich is out there spoiling stories again. If they would have just let it go and just let the comic come out, normally and everything else, you absolutely would have had the case of these guys taking a victory lap because they got it right. However, it would have also had the effect of, I think being a healthier, stronger, long-term title. I think by spoiling it, you cheapened the stunt. And make no mistake about it, it is a stunt. I get that, this is a step forward for inclusiveness and everything else, but this is much, in the way this is being billed and promoted and hyped, it's very much like a surprise death or a resurrection in a comic. It's somebody's coming out, which is the 2021 stunt that people are doing for comics. By the way, none of this is saying that you shouldn't have, gay characters or inclusive things in comics. Of course, you should. But when you treat them like you'll never believe what happens in this issue, Jon Kent's bisexual. Well, now you've turned it into a stunt more than a story. And when you do press releases at USA Today and New York Times and other things, it becomes more of a stunt. The trick is over the next year or 2 years, if they build on that story and make it compelling and have some twists and turns and make it something people really care about for the character, then it will feel less like a stunt and more like a starting point. That's up to DC. Only DC can do this. They'll either accomplish that or not. But at the moment, when you PR and press release this kind of stuff, much in the same way if the characters got married, they had a baby, again, if they died, if they came back to life, whatever it happens to be, like the Iron Fist thing. They're going to change out Iron Fist and he's going to be, a different character. You can't tell really because the character has a mask on, but appears Asian. Cool. Okay. But these things are stunt things that they do for comics. When they're accompanied by a spoiler or a press release, it's a stunt. Personally, if I was running these companies, I wouldn't focus too much or worry about what YouTubers are saying, what Bleeding Cool is saying. I wouldn't worry about that. I would just tell the story I'm going to tell. And if that means every now and then they get, those people get to pat themselves on the back and say, we were right. I mean, so what? Let them say that. What does that have to do with me? I think, to me, this entire idea of we spoiled it, and the reason that was given, which was, well, the story was getting out there and there was some incorrect information. I'm not sure there was incorrect information, by the way. I guess the incorrect information, I believe, is people said that, Jon Kent was going to be gay and he's bisexual, actually. So that's the incorrect part. But, why do you care if that's being said? Overall, as an observation, I think comics and publishers are way too concerned with what people are saying on the internet. The ecosystem of YouTube or Bleeding Cool or these sites, let that just be what it is. You don't have to get in there and try and micromanage it or control it. You can't do it anyway. It's impossible for you to do it. The right answer is to tell your story, tell it well, try not to spoil things, try not to give away your value. And frankly, I think by spoiling it this way, I think in the long run they'll have, if you add it all up, I think they'll make less money for both themselves and shops this way than if they just rolled it out. That's my belief. I may be wrong. It's a hard pick, because granted, a number of speculators are going to buy this issue because it's the one where he's gay. But I think that the buzz and the shock. One thing that I think is true for comics is when comics have had a big shock, a surprise moment, and it hasn't been spoiled, it tends to have a ripple effect where people come in and they buy new comics. It installs in people's minds that they need to pay attention and they need to actually maybe buy things more because they don't want to be left out. When you're basically signaling to them that, hey, we're going to tell you whenever there's anything that might be mildly of interest, then they don't take chances, and I think they buy less. That's my personal belief. I'm curious to hear what you think of this, so let me know in the comments below. But number one, are you surprised that that's the reason they revealed it? I don't think so. I'm curious if anybody is surprised. Number two, what do you think would have happened? Like play it out financially. I think it would have done ultimately better long term if they just would have rolled it out as a story, had the surprise element, teach people that anything could happen. By the way, I'll add this. Wrestling got itself into trouble when they started revealing a little bit. They started tipping their hands of the heel turns and some of the things that were happening. The hottest time in wrestling was when it was unpredictable. When the NWO was formed, when Hulk Hogan turned evil, that kind of stuff. That period in wrestling was red hot. And it's because people were afraid not to tune into the show because they were afraid they were going to miss some huge important development. Once you start signaling to people that you're going to let them in on whatever that development is, you definitely get the pop for that moment, but you lose money overall. I think we've seen that with some title changes and other things back in the day, but that's unpredictability is a major factor for revenue, for driving money. That's my belief anyway. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course, and thanks for listening.